Simi clutched the hospital bed rails as another contraction tore through her body. The pain was unlike anything she had ever felt before. "Push, madam, push," urged the midwife, her voice firm but kind. I can't do this anymore," Simi cried, tears streaming down her face. Her husband, Tunde, squeezed her hand. "You can do this, my love. Our baby is almost here." With one final excruciating push, Simi felt her baby leave her body. The room filled with a tiny cry. "It's a girl!" the doctor announced. Simi smiled weakly, trying to lift her head to see her daughter. But suddenly, the room began to spin. The lights above her blurred into streaks of white. "Blood pressure dropping," she heard someone shout. "Simi! Simi!" Tunde's voice seemed far away. Then, darkness. When Simi opened her eyes, sunlight streamed through the hospital window. Her body felt heavy, her mouth dry. "Welcome back," said a nurse, adjusting her IV drip. "You gave us quite a scare." "My baby," Simi whispered, her throat raw. "Where's my baby?" "Your husband will bring her soon. You lost a lot of blood during delivery. You've been out for almost 24 hours. Simi touched her now empty belly, trying to process what had happened. The door opened, and Tunde walked in carrying a small bundle wrapped in a pink blanket. "Here she is," he said, placing the baby in Simi's arms. "Our beautiful Ada." Simi looked down at the sleeping infant. Something stirred inside her, not the rush of love she had expected, but a strange, unsettling feeling. She examined the baby's face, round cheeks, tiny nose, perfect lips, but something didn't feel right. "Is she okay?" Tunde asked, noticing her frown. "Yes, she's beautiful," Simi replied, forcing a smile. "Just not what I expected." 3 days later, Simi sat on their bed in their modest Lekki apartment, staring at the baby sleeping in the bassinet. Tunde's mother, Iya, bustled around the room, arranging baby clothes. "Iya, do babies change a lot after birth?" Simi asked. "What do you mean?" "During my scan at Lagos Central, before we switched to healing hands, the doctor said the baby had a small birthmark on her shoulder, like a little star. But Ada doesn't have any marks." Aya waved her hand dismissively. "Those scan machines are not always clear, and doctors make mistakes. But I saw it clearly on the screen. Chidi even pointed it out specifically." "Simi, you need to rest. This thinking too much is not good. New mothers sometimes have strange thoughts. It's the hormones." But it wasn't just the missing birthmark. There was something else. Something Simi couldn't quite name. A feeling in her chest when she held the baby, like holding a stranger's child. That night, while feeding Ada, Simi noticed something fall from the baby's blanket. A tiny anklet with blue and white beads. "Tunde," she called. "Where did this come from?" "I didn't put any jewelry on the baby." Tunde examined it. Maybe the nurses at the hospital, or Iya might have slipped it on for protection. But when she asked Iya the next morning, the older woman denied ever seeing it before. "It's probably from the hospital," Iya said. "Throw it away. We don't need strange things in this house." Instead, Simi tucked it into her jewelry box, next to the matching anklet she had bought for her baby months before, red and gold beads that remained unused. A week after returning home, Simi decided to visit Healing Hands Hospital for her follow-up appointment. While waiting, she spotted a familiar face, a cleaner who had been working the night she gave birth. "Excuse me," Simi approached the woman. "You were working the night I had my baby, yes?" "Last week?" The woman looked around nervously. "Yes, madam. I remember you. You had complications. Did you see anything unusual that night? With any of the babies?" The cleaner's eyes widened slightly. She leaned closer. "Be careful asking questions here, madam. Not everything is as it seems at Healing Hands." Before Simi could ask more, a nurse called her name. During her checkup, Kemi was cheerful but rushed. When Simi mentioned the birthmark she had seen on the scan at Lagos Central, the doctor hardly looked up from her chart. "Different doctors see different things, Simi. Your baby is perfectly healthy. That's what matters, isn't it?" On her way out, Simi stopped at the records office. "I'd like to see my delivery records," she told the clerk. "You need to fill this form and come back in 3 days," the clerk replied. "Can't I see them today? I'm already here." "Hospital policy, madam. 3 days." As Simi turned to leave, she noticed a woman staring at her from across the waiting room. Their eyes met, and the woman quickly looked away. That night, Simi couldn't sleep. She watched Ada breathing in her crib, tiny chest rising and falling. "Am I going crazy?" she whispered to herself. She took out her phone and scrolled through pictures from her pregnancy. In one photo, taken during her last scan at Lagos Central, the doctor was pointing at a small mark on the baby's shoulder. Proof that she wasn't imagining things. The next morning, while Tunde was at work, Simi joined a mother's group at the local community center. As she sat listening to other women share their experiences, a woman entered late and sat beside her. "You were at Healing Hands last week," the woman whispered. It wasn't a question. Simi recognized her from the waiting room. "Yes. I'm Ngozi. Meet me outside after the meeting." In the parking lot, Ngozi spoke quickly. "I had my baby at Healing Hands too. A boy. But something's not right. He doesn't look like the baby I saw right after delivery." Simi's heart raced. "You think?" "I don't know what to think. But I know what I saw." And then I overheard 2 nurses talking about the swap when they thought no one was listening. "Did you tell anyone?" "My husband thinks I'm suffering from postpartum depression. The hospital gave me the same answer they gave you. Told me to fill forms and come back later." "Do you have those forms?" Ngozi pulled crumpled papers from her bag. "I went back. The records they gave me had been changed. Look at the delivery time." The form showed Ngozi's baby was born at 9:15 p.m. "That's not right," Ngozi said. "My son was born at 8:30. I remember looking at the clock." Simi's mind spun with possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. That evening, she tried talking to Tunde. "I think something happened at the hospital. Something with the babies." Tunde put down his phone. "What are you talking about?" "The birthmark that Chidi at Lagos Central noted is missing. There was a strange anklet, and now this woman with similar concerns." "Simi, please. You're exhausted. New motherhood is overwhelming." "I'm not imagining this, Tunde. Why won't you listen to me?" "Because you're not making sense. Our daughter is perfectly healthy. We should be thankful, not creating problems." "Why did we switch hospitals in my 8th month? We were happy with Lagos Central." Tunde avoided her eyes. "Healing Hands has better facilities. I told you this." Aya entered the room. "What's all this shouting?" "Simi thinks the hospital gave us the wrong baby," Tunde said, exasperation in his voice. "God forbid!" Iya crossed herself. "Such terrible thoughts. Simi, you need to pray and rest. This is the devil's work, putting such ideas in your head. Simi felt utterly alone. That night, she waited until everyone was asleep. Then she carefully took a swab from inside Ada's cheek, placed it in a plastic bag, and did the same with her own cheek. She had read about home DNA tests online. The next day, Simi met Ngozi at a quiet cafe away from their neighborhoods. "I found something," Ngozi said, showing Simi her phone. "There's a private forum for mothers who gave birth at Healing Hands. 3 other women have posted about feeling disconnected from their babies and inconsistencies in hospital records. Have they done anything about it? They're afraid. Healing Hands is owned by Chief Emeka. He has connections everywhere: police, government. One woman who complained too loudly suddenly found her husband transferred to a remote village. We need proof," Simi said. "I've taken samples for a DNA test." "I did too," Ngozi admitted. "But I'm scared of the results." As they talked, Simi noticed a man watching them from another table. When she looked directly at him, he quickly paid his bill and left. "We need to be careful," Ngozi whispered. "Meet me at Unity Labs tomorrow. My cousin works there. He'll rush our tests." The DNA results came back 2 days later. Simi's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Probability of maternity, 0%. Her knees buckled. Ada was not her biological daughter. She called Ngozi immediately. "Mine says the same thing." Ngozi's voice cracked. "What do we do now?" "We find our real babies," Simi said, determination replacing shock. That afternoon, Simi searched their apartment while Iya took Ada for a walk. In Tunde's study, she found a locked drawer in his desk. Using a hairpin, she managed to open it. Inside was a folder labeled Healing Hands Investment. Her hands shook as she opened it. Documents showed that Tunde's construction company had recently won a major contract to build a new wing for the hospital. The contract was signed just before they switched hospitals. The amount was far more than such work should cost. Clearly a bribe disguised as a contract. There was also a list of names. Special clients. Tunde and Simi's names were on it, along with 5 other couples. "What have you done, Tunde?" she whispered. When confronted that evening, Tunde's face drained of color. "It's not what you think," he insisted. "Then explain it to me," Simi demanded, showing him the DNA results. "Explain why the baby you brought to me isn't mine." Tunde collapsed into a chair, his face in his hands. "I needed that hospital contract," he finally said. "My company was going under. We had loans to pay. I was desperate." "What does that have to do with our baby?" Simi demanded. Tunde looked up, his eyes hollow. "Chief Emeka has a business. He takes healthy babies from women who deliver at his hospital. Usually women from poor families who won't have the resources to fight back. Then he sells these babies to wealthy couples who can't have children of their own." Simi felt the room spin. "What about our baby?" "Chief Emeka promised me the contract if I helped him. All I had to do was make sure you delivered at Healing Hands and look the other way." "You were willing to sell our baby?" Simi's voice was barely a whisper. "No, it wasn't supposed to be like that. The plan was just to use our delivery as cover for another switch. But then you had complications, and while you were unconscious, they actually took our baby too. When I protested, Chief Emeka threatened to reveal my involvement to the police." "So, whose baby is Ada?" "I don't know exactly. They don't tell us those details. All I know is that she's from a poor family, and her mother was told the baby died during delivery. And our real daughter, she's been sold. That's all I know, I swear. They never tell anyone where the babies go. It's safer that way. Simi's legs gave way and she sank to the floor. Her baby, gone, sold to strangers, and Tunde had let it happen. The next day, Simi and Ngozi met with the other mothers from the forum. Together, they pieced together the truth. Chief Emeka ran a sophisticated baby trafficking operation. Babies were stolen from poor or unconscious mothers and sold to wealthy and fertile couples. The mothers were either told their babies had died, or in Simi's case, given another baby as a replacement. The anklet, Simi realized. It must have belonged to Ada's real mother. And the altered records, added Ngozi. They changed times and details to confuse any investigation. We need to expose this, said one mother. Go to the press. No one will believe us, another argued. And even if they do, Chief Emeka will bury the story. Then we gather evidence first, Simi said. I found records in my husband's office. Let each of us collect what we can. They agreed to meet again in 2 days. As Simi left the meeting, a car pulled alongside her. The window lowered, revealing Chief Emeka himself. Simi, he said smoothly, I think it's time we had a chat. In Chief Emeka's opulent office, Simi sat rigidly, refusing the offered refreshments. Your husband was very helpful to our operation, the chief said, his voice silky. But he's becoming a liability now, as are you. What you're doing is criminal, Simi's voice shook with rage. Stealing babies from their mothers. Is it stealing to give a child a better life? The families who receive these babies are wealthy, influential. The children will want nothing. Meanwhile, their birth mothers can barely feed themselves. That's not your decision to make. Where is my baby? Chief Emeka smiled coldly. Safe and loved, I assure you. The family who has her tried for years to have a child. They've already left the country with her. You'll never find them. I want my daughter back, Simi said firmly. That would be unwise. Your husband's company is now tied to Healing Hands. If this arrangement becomes public, his career is finished. And you, he paused. Well, who would believe a woman diagnosed with postpartum psychosis? You wouldn't dare. The prescription is already in your medical file, Simi, dated the day after you gave birth. That night, Simi packed a small bag and took Ada to Ngozi's house. The mothers had agreed it was no longer safe for them to stay with their husbands, many of whom were either complicit or unwilling to believe the truth. I've contacted a journalist, Ngozi said. She's worked on corruption cases before. She's meeting us tomorrow. What about the babies we're caring for now? One mother asked. They deserve love too, Simi said softly, looking at Ada sleeping peacefully. None of this is their fault, but they also deserve to know they're real mothers. The journalist, Bose, listened to their story with growing alarm. This is bigger than I expected, she said. We'll need solid evidence and multiple sources willing to go on record. I have the DNA tests and documents from my husband's office, Simi offered. I recorded my conversation with one of the nurses, another mother added. And I have the original and altered medical records, said Ngozi. Bose nodded. It's a start. But we'll need someone from inside the hospital to corroborate. The cleaner Simi had spoken to at the hospital, Yemi, agreed to meet them at a church far from Healing Hands. I've watched this happen for years. The older woman said, her voice trembling. Poor women given birth, then told their babies died. Sometimes they're unconscious, like you were. The babies go to rich families who can't have children of their own. How many babies? Bose asked. Hundreds, Yemi whispered. Chief Emeka charges millions for each one. Sometimes, if a mother won't accept that her baby died, they give her another baby, one that actually did die or was abandoned. Will you speak on record? Bose asked. Yemi hesitated, then nodded slowly. It's time to make things right before God. As they left the church, Simi noticed a familiar car parked across the street. We're being watched, she whispered. That night, their evidence disappeared. Ngozi's apartment was broken into. The journalist's computer was stolen. Yemi called in tears. She had been fired and threatened. They're always one step ahead, Simi said, cradling Ada. We need something they can't make disappear. The next day, Simi received a call from Iya. Come to the house now. Tunde is at work. We need to talk. When Simi arrived, Iya ushered her into the bedroom and closed the door. I know what's happening, she said without preamble. I've suspected something was wrong since you came home from the hospital. You believe me? Simi asked, surprised. I overheard Tunde on the phone with Chief Emeka last night. They were arguing about the babies, about you asking questions. Aya's eyes filled with tears. My son has done a terrible thing. She pressed a small recorder into Simi's hand. I put this in his study 3 days ago. He and Chief Emeka discussed everything. The baby trafficking, the bribes, all of it. Simi stared at her mother-in-law. Why are you helping me? Because what they did is evil, Aya said simply, and because I raised my son better than this. She took Simi's hands in hers. Go, find your baby, and help the others find theirs too. What they're doing cannot continue. Armed with the recording, Simi and the other mothers took their story not to local media, but to an international human rights organization with offices in Lagos. Within days, the story broke worldwide. The scandal shook Nigeria to its core. Chief Emeka was arrested trying to flee the country. Tunde and several hospital administrators were taken into custody. Healing Hands Hospital was shut down. DNA tests were ordered for all babies born at the hospital in the past 3 years. Over 40 babies had been illegally taken from their birth mothers and sold to wealthy families across Nigeria and abroad. For Simi, the most difficult part was learning that her biological daughter had indeed been taken out of the country to a couple in Dubai. The Nigerian government was working through diplomatic channels, but international baby trafficking cases were notoriously difficult to resolve. Meanwhile, Simi met Ada's birth mother, a young woman named Ify. They told me she died, Ify sobbed, touching Ada's face. I named her Nkechi, God's gift. I prayed she would have a better life than me. Simi's heart broke for this woman who had been robbed of her child. And yet, after 2 months of caring for Ada, Simi loved her too. As the courts deliberated, families across Nigeria were torn between the children they had grown to love and the biological children they had never known. 6 months later, Simi stood in the airport arrival hall, her heart pounding. After months of international pressure, the couple who had purchased her daughter had finally agreed to return her to Nigeria. Beside her stood Ify, holding Ada/Nkechi. In the months since the scandal broke, the two women had formed an unexpected bond, mothers united by trauma and love for the same child. "There she is," whispered Iya, who had come to support Simi. A social worker walked through the gate, carrying a small bundle. Simi's legs trembled as she approached. The baby, her biological daughter, was now almost 8 months old, a stranger to her own mother. As Simi took her daughter in her arms for the first time since birth, she felt a wave of love mixed with grief for all the months they had lost. "Her name is Amaka," the social worker explained. "That's what they've been calling her." Simi nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Hello, Amaka," she whispered. In the weeks that followed, the courts made their rulings. Some babies were returned to their biological parents. Others remained with the families who had raised them, with visitation rights established for biological parents. For Simi and Ify, the solution was different. They moved into neighboring apartments and agreed to co-parent both girls together, creating a family bound not by blood or marriage, but by choice and love. Tunde was serving a reduced sentence after testifying against Chief Emeka. The scandal had exposed corruption at the highest levels of Nigerian society, leading to new laws protecting mothers and babies. "It takes a village," Ngozi said, visiting Simi on a sunny afternoon. Her son was now sharing time between her and his birth mother in a similar arrangement. "More than a village," Simi replied, watching Ify teaching both girls a clapping game. "It takes courage to put children first." As the sun set over Lagos, Simi reflected on the painful journey that had led to this moment. The truth had cost her a marriage, but had given her something more valuable. 2 daughters and an extended family built on honesty rather than lies. She watched as Ada and Kechi gently helped Amaka stand, supporting her sister with tiny but determined hands. In that moment, Simi understood the deepest truth. Motherhood was not defined by DNA or paperwork, but by love, sacrifice, and the courage to fight for what was right. What would you do in Simi's shoes? If you were faced with a betrayal this deep, how far would you go to fight for the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated on more gripping stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Together, let's stand up for the truth.